We talked a little bit about Mike McDonald and his philosophy and what drove it, especially from really the defensive side of it, as we know that that's really where a big part of his fingerprints are going to be on with this team because of the fact that he is, of course, going to actually be calling the plays. But he also made what I thought was a very interesting and I'll call it dangerous hire, but a hire that had not necessarily this is a nice little safe route for you to go. Just a little safe way for you to go take here. And instead of taking what would have been the safe approach, and by that I just mean that defensive coaches always typically, or not always, but they just tend to typically have that sort of offense, just don't mess it up kind of mentality as they look to the other side of the ball. He's not that kind of guy in what he's showing you here with this hire and alone. And we'll get into the reasons for why this, but I'm talking about new offensive coordinator that's come with Mike McDonald. Many of you are already very familiar with him because of his history with the University of Huskies in the last 2 years and the prolific offenses he's put together. But he went for that dangerous hire, the boom or bust hire in this guy who is going to bring an offense that's going to be about explosiveness. It's going to be about taking shots. There is going to be some risk involved in what you're going to be doing here with this team offensively and its structure. And that's where I really do have to laud Coach McDonald for having the willingness to take this road when so many other defensive coaches would have gone with this, the guy that would have been, give me a guy who can take a rookie quarterback, who can run read option concepts, and then we're going to run the ball a little bit more than we pass. And, again, we're just going to really be protective on that side of the ball. You guys know what I'm talking about on this. We know with familiarity some coaches throughout the league that definitely do this as far as their outlook on the offensive side of the ball. Grubb is not going to be that way. And this is a guy that is bringing a spread system into place. It's a system that has really its DNA fingerprints going back to the air raid offense. And so much like I did with Mike McDonald, let's backtrack this one a little bit, okay? Let's start from the ground up, from the root to the tube. All right, let's get it in the right order, in the right direction of things. The run and shoot offense to me is really the main precursor to the air raid. We'll talk about the air raid in a second, but you want to understand this stuff conceptually, I think, a little bit in it to understand not only what the DNA it comes from is within there, but also how it still then affects. There's elements within the run and shoot still within this air raid offense. And this isn't exactly just pure air raid offense and what Grubb's running. He's running his style of it, with just the spread principles in play and certainly on the back of mainly that kind of air raid type of stuff. But this is the man who really in the NFL, as far as that's at least concerned, and that's what we're talking about here is really through the NFL's eye on this, as the first guy to really drive home and drive forward the spread concepts you'd get. We'll go to 3 or 4 wide receivers, this being Jerry Glanville. And this is a moment taken where I am not joking. This is in a moment where right at halftime, he tried to punch an official to give you an idea of the nature of the way that this guy was built. That's what this shot's taken from, as his players are having to literally drag him away from not pounding an official into the dirt. But this was not a man, as you might understand from that act, that was belabored by much fear and not much in his base mindset. We're going to go 4 wide. We're not going to give Warren Moon much protections, and we're going to force a defense to have to play in space, and we're going to attack space, and we're going to attack mismatches, and my 3rd and 4th wide receiver will be better than your 3rd and 4th corner. And back in the 80s and early 90s, that was working because, of course, NFL teams were so used to being in base all the time. You only needed 2 corners. You were very rarely having to call upon even your nickel. So for this coach to push this forward really kind of set the NFL on its heels a bit. He was able to kind of only take it so far because, as you might imagine, when you have, we're just going to throw the ball, and they had a couple guys who ran as well, but then we're not going to really protect our quarterbacks. You get your quarterback, beat up over time to a good degree. But it was an explosive offense. He could put up a ton of points. The majority of Warren Moon's career, I think, is on the back of running in this run and shoot offense. Not that he couldn't run other offenses because he was a great quarterback. But it continued to go forward a little bit, and it was driven forward not just by this guy. He went to this. There's this sort of famed moment where he goes to some coaching clinic, and this is former Washington State head coach Mike Leach. Rest in peace to Mike Leach. But the man that really, to me, drove home the best way the air raid offense. There's other coaches that have done it in their way and how they've put it out and how they've presented it. But he was the one that really had the light bulb moment. Forget the other coach. It was him and another coach of this camp that they thought, just as they're talking about different structures of play design, and they said, what if we just were in the 2-minute drill all the time? What if we acted like that all the time? And this is where you get a little bit of we're using now concepts that can be similar concepts into what stuff even the run and shoot ran at that time, but this was going to be more presently based in different stuff and how it was structured. It was going to be more attacking with some vertical aspects to it. I'd offer the run and shoot offense was really about one just trying to get vertical mainly almost all the time. They really wanted to get up the field and attack you down the field with Warren Moon's big arm. This kind of spread concept was more about getting you a little bit more into lateral position, just pace and space, so to speak. Of course, we know Chip Kelly did a little bit of this stuff too, to a degree, but he's a little bit more in that. It's more about the speed of my offense more than it is about how we're necessarily attacking from the spread formation. But Leach is the guy that you can kind of lead to eventually getting to now Grubb as far as what informs this offense. He has his own spread, as I said, and we'll get to the details of that. But this is where it's coming from. It's that we're going to get the defense all the way spread out, and it's not just about the passing attack. We're also able then to give our running backs, while maybe not as many blockers up front, we're giving our running backs more of an ability now to have less defenders down there. Because if you're running a base defense, you got 3 linebackers on the field, you got 7 men down in the box, it's going to create a lot of just natural congestion down there, whether you're getting any push or not. There's a lot of bodies to have to account for at that point. When you spread it all out, when you force the defenses to get back into cover 2, now you're giving your running backs a whole lot more space to work with, to read their blocks, to maybe cut back with a little bit more fervor back in a different direction against where maybe they're seeing the situation go. And that's just what we saw from Dillon last year for the Huskies and some of his runs and how you can read it here. But this is where it comes from. And then we get to Grubb. So understand this is your kind of, if you're looking for just the inherent differences when you hear about these concepts spoken about, the air raid, you're going to get your vertical concepts, which is absolutely what you'd get with the run and shoot. Run and shoot's more the option route stuff built within. There is option route stuff within this. Certainly the Huskies definitely did a lot of that. But you're getting more screens, not as West Coasty. What does that mean as far as not as West Coasty? Man, that's a mouthful. It sounds better when you write it down. It means you're not built upon as much running the short and intermediate routes that are built on precision. It's a little bit less about that. It's a different kind of way you're trying to punch on the field. And to me, as I try to kind of put it in just sort of basic terms, you're just trying to punch to different spots on the field you think are going to be inherently open in what you're seeing from the defense, even just kind of reacting to it or predicting what they're doing in a sequence of plays. So it's a ball, they can move the ball binding style. It's run or pass. All that stuff was still within that, but they very much are heavy on the screen game. Heavy on some of that horizontal stuff. The verticality of then attacking over the top is built within, but that's what they do is they get the defense to come up, boom. Now we got you up over the top. Some teams would do that by a rushing attack. We're pounding you with running game, we're pounding you with running game, we're pounding you with running game. Now we're going to hit you up over the top. With them, it's short. Okay, here we go up now up over the top to get you. Spread offense is more no definition. It's just a look formational concept. It's really about just having bodies spread out across the field as much as anything. It's a real base term here in referencing to a spread style. Air raid would be more of a specific, spread style. Run and shoot would be more of a specific spread style. So a lot of run and shoot concepts are clearing out the secondary and getting the route option open, the read route option open. So you have a read route guy where he's reading the leverage. And then you've got, players in front of him to clear out. That's those flood zone concepts type things that you'll try to bring into principle there. And then he reads off the flood zone concepts off of it. So for instance, the Huskies will go trips at times. How this is a big way that they like to attack cover 2 is you go trips, and then you're going to run 2 post routes. So the 2 post routes are the clear routes. And then you have the third receiver coming in behind off the trips look, which is 3 wide receivers to one side of the field. So the first 2 go post, takes all the, clears out all the coverage at that point. And then there's usually one man still lingering. And now this receiver gets to read that leverage, know those other defenders are out of the play now at this point. They're picking up those receivers. And then you can attack that concept with that. And that's where you get a little bit of the run and shoot still within some of this air raid stuff, especially within how it was built within the Huskies offense. When it comes to Grubb, let's go through some of the specific items that you get with him, what he brings to the table, across the board and what I'm kind of expecting him to continue to bring across the board here to Seattle. You got to make some changes at the NFL level because a lot of the spread working at the college level and why it's been at times so slow to completely get onboarded at the same speed to the NFL level has to do with the wider hash marks. I set up over on this wider hash mark to this, let's say, right side. That left hash mark's way over there, but where they're putting the ball in is on that hash mark. So I've got all this extra space out here that I wouldn't have with the closer hash marks at the NFL level, which has made spread have a harder time getting into play. But I think it will start to work now as we've slowly seen this stuff being onboarded through the years more and more and more as teams try to find a way to kind of work around not having as much of the widened hash marks. But first and foremost, when it comes to Grubb, he's got a background absolutely in as an offensive line coach. This factors into really two places to me with him, and that you see him not married to a certain kind of rushing way that he wants to do it. Man on man, zone concepts. We're just going to do gap. There's a lot of built-in. We'll kind of use everything in the book here to come at you, and why that's appealing in the way that if you get a defense, sometimes when you're in those structured running styles where this is how we hit here and this is how we hit there, it's going to be one of those two. We're going to read off sometimes the looks of what you're doing defensively. We're going to read it off the boxes and how stacked they might be. But it also might have some rigidity to its structure. I would say with Grubb, the thing you have to understand with him is he seems a guy very open to doing so many different things across the board and using all different kind of concepts. You'll see a counter concept built in heavily into his rushing attack, which is where you start the running back looking like they're going to one way and then they loop back around another way and you got pullers moving back across the formation. And it's a really effective run style, but where it's really nice is the counter punt. You're hitting that team outside, you're hitting them with outside zone, boom, boom, boom. That team starts to drift defensively now, a little bit post-snap, a little bit too heavy. Boom, you set the counter up and you got a home run play backside, especially if you might have a back who's like, 4-3 and able to bust the home run hitter off like we know we've got in Walker. But he will do this out of pistol formations. He'll take you out of shotgun with Geno and get to an outside pitch play with it looking everything like a passing play. Defense feels like it's a passing play. You go post snap, the kind of almost an option looking play, but it's really just the quarterback going to the quick pitch out there to the running back out in space. And then the running back using it as just a get in space kind of way. He's not just going to need to get Kenneth Walker in space by having Geno lined up as center and throwing a pitch play out to him or getting out to him on wide zone. He'll be able to do it in a couple of different ways to get him out into that space and not to where it just looks obvious to the defense how they're trying to set the whole thing up. So a creative rushing attack is where it stands. He will come at you from all angles. You will get fly sweeps. He is going to use misdirection. He's not just going to be a guy you go, man, here's the same run we're going to get again. Oh, it's this run again. Oh, here he's going again with all these pitch plays. Never stopping with the pitch play again. Stop with the pitch plays. No, you're going to get everything from him. So he's go back even to the Texas game as it was kind of charting it here yesterday and just watching what the way he used the runs in that game over the course of that game, kind of testing out early on, kind of probing, and then he starts attacking in different places off of how he's probed and what he's read off of that. And it wasn't that the running game won the day from in that, but it was just enough to be effective there for them to keep Texas honest over the course of that game. And he did it by not having to lean on just kind of one way going in Texas, especially Texas front that had Murphy, that had Devondre Sweat, and not a bad rotation behind those guys either as well. Another part of what Grubb brings to play is a conversion rate on third down that is going to be very much hopefully improved, and something that we weren't necessarily bad at over the last couple of years, but something that should be a part of what is present within his offense. 57% third down completion rate in 2022 when you have spread concepts built into what you do. As we will with this, of course, one of the benefits of that is there's a lot of natural route structures that are short and quick. So if you're in the 3rd and 3, you're in the 3rd and 4, rather than it looking so hard as it often would last year, so many times over, now it starts to be like, whoa, there's just easy open concept. You guys are going to be kind of blown away, I think, at times by how much he'll get easy openings for players in space, even in on those third down and shorts where you think the defense is playing up and they're going to squish the routes and try to take away the short stuff and force you to hang in there and maybe try to take a shot deep as you're trying to get that conversion. Now, this was 57% in third down conversion last year. It did dip down just a little bit this year, but they were still 28th this year. I believe it was number 1 last year in their third down conversion rate in the NCAA. So while it did dip down a little bit this season, it was still really, really good, and should be something that I think we come to expect is part of what you're going to continue to get from him here as we go forward. You've got zone concepts. Talked about the rushing attack and what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. Your zone concepts are going to make up 65% of Grubb's rushing attack. So a lot of blocking to space, a lot of asking the running back to press the hole really fast and get to that hole and then make the read off of your initial press, what you're seeing the defense do from a flow-based, standpoint. So zone, you got your, gap power stuff. I'll try to show it over here over my left shoulder. It's a little bit more mano-y mano. Yeah, you get the left guard, for instance, at this pulling out. This is a typical play you might have seen a lot of from Seattle over the last couple of years to Kenneth Walker. And it's not a lot of moving parts. There's not a lot of pre-snap motion to it. What you're seeing here is basically what you're going to get. Take on your man at the point of attack, get it done, get it established, get the running back down in the hole where the running back gets an opportunity to kind of read it a little bit. He doesn't have to read anything kind of backside, just everything's front side on the play. It's not that it makes it a little bit easier read for the running back theoretically. Zone, and this is one you guys will like. I took this one from the Marshawn Lynch days with the Seattle Seahawks, and this is still something that is in play and will be in play when it comes to what we do this year. 2 tight end sets. You're going to continue to get that heavily in this offense. Yes, it's spread offense, but it's a spread offense that will have its share of 12 personnel out on the football field, which, as you can see here, elongates out the line of scrimmage. And then you can see the difference in zone concepts when we go to power. You can see everybody's kind of going right down to a spot. When we come back here to the Seahawks run here on this zone run, you'll notice you get more of the flow. You've got the backside tight end there. He's just to make sure the guy doesn't scrape down and get to Marshawn, giving Marshawn a little bit more time to read the play. And then you get all of the offensive linemen reaching. They're taking a lateral step post snap rather than a forward step. They're laterally reaching to the block. So this at that point eventually gets you hopefully to a numbers game to that side of the field, or at least gets things sealed to that side of the field. That's what Marshawn is to do, though, here. As you can see with Marshawn in the yellow, he presses that hole fast. That's what I'm talking about in the zone concepts. So Marshawn doesn't take this pitch and kind of jog his way to look at what's going on and kind of read it through, right? He takes the pitch and gets down, pressing right down onto the back, basically, of a coon. That's where he wants to be at that point. But as he gets down in that press, he starts to read that the defense is over pursued. He's got the option to cut it back at that point. This is where some running backs will sometimes in prior years they used to get really pissy about it because it did take out that full field read that you could have as a running back. Sean Alexander was great with this stuff where he could take this kind of run and he could read it all the way to the backside. He could read the backside block with your tight end over there and be like, oh, he's got it sealed way back over there. I can get back over there. With this, it's more programmed in to tell the running back to get downhill and get after it. A bit of a different concept here with what, of course, Grubb would run with this first, what the Hawks were running 10 years ago with this is you're also going to see some more linemen pulling in this play. If it's going to this left side, you're going to have J.R. Sweezy coming back. You might also have the right tackle coming back, and they leave the backside defender unblocked. And then they just tell the Marshawn Lynch back in that moment, okay, there is no cutback here. You just press it to the hole because we're going to have a wave of numbers. And you're going to basically be able to line up behind the lineman pulling in space. Like you've got 2 fullbacks in front of you going to the outside tackle, going outside the left tackle's shoulder there. So it's a little different conceptually in how Grubb does it, but it's still zone is zone, lateral step rather than vertical step, running backs pressing the hole fast. He's also got some pin pull concepts in play, which I love, especially if you can get the running receiver down there. DK Metcalf comes down in motion, pins down on a defensive end. You get to an outside pitch play. You get multiple offensive linemen rolling out in space. This example here only has 1, but in Grubb's offense, you'd have 2 guys then pulling out in space. You just feel like you naturally have a numbers game to that side of the football field. But zone is where it's going to be at for Mr. Grubb. That's how he's going to roll this 65% of the time. And that's, again, modern NFL, that's where it's basically at. For those of you that love to lament to me about trick plays. I get talked about trick plays all the time when it comes to the Seahawks. Man, when we can run trick plays. And indeed, over Coach Carroll's time, we didn't run it a lot. But when we did run trick plays, we ran them pretty well. We had some pretty good success rates with them. Well, with Grubb, he on average is going to run 1 trick play a game. You have 985 plays from the Washington Huskies last year, 16 trick plays within that. So just a little bit more than 1 trick play a game. When I watched the Texas game yesterday and was just again charting out some plays and looking at some things, I'm going to give you guys some eventual video cut-ups of this stuff with what he does. But as I was charting that, you had 2 trick plays in that, and then you had another fake trick play within that as well, built into the concepts and what he did for that game. So trick plays are fun for fans because it gives you the oohs and the ahs and go, ooh, we're trick. We got yeah, okay, this is cool. But it's also really nice for beating defenses that are leaning towards what they think or perceive to be a tendency. So what I love at the heart of Grubb's offense, when you really want to get to the core of it, is that it's multiple. It's not married to some individual archetype, or this is what we are and we're conceptually held to that. It's more about trying to attack a defense in different places on the football field to give you the feeling, play in and play out, of you don't know where the ball's going to go. You just don't get a feeling of I can lean this way over here defensively to this because I'm seeing them do this, and when they do this on tape, that's definitely what they do. You always are kind of on the back heels rather than on the toes here with this offense. And the trick plays are a little bit a part of this because they force you, knowing coming into playing a team like Grubb's, that I have to stay back if I'm the single high safety here. I can't come down and help in the run game. If I'm in on a receiver and he runs a lot of his trick plays where he'll have his receivers run their routes hard and sell it, and those corners know that I can't just buy back in on the run game and come up at that point. I have to carry that receiver up the football field there. I have to take myself out as a run defender here completely because the threat of that one trick play game is in play. Whereas if, let's say, you were to run 3 trick plays over the course of a year, a defense is going to be aware of it, but will that cornerback occasionally roll the dice and say, I don't think this will be the game they're going to run that one trick play. I'm going to come up in this game a little bit more heartily and come down. But them, with Grubb, constantly, all the time, you will need to be aware of the fact that you've got to stay on your offensive player. If you're there in coverage, you've got to stay over the top if you're the over-the-top safety. So that's a thing fans will love. We're going to get as many trick plays as we've had since our initial coach who started out here with the Seattle Seahawks back in 77. That guy, you didn't have a lot of talent back then. It wasn't for reasons of trying to attack tendencies back then. It was because we don't have anybody. Okay? We got the janitors, our receiver. I got a doctor for a running back. I got to make it happen here. And so you did a little bit back then by necessity, but this guy's going to do it as a way to bust up defenses from being able to take away things by make them play discipline, make them play true to the spot. Don't let them cheat. And that's a big part of, again, this offense is it doesn't allow you to cheat because it can attack you in any place on the football field. Passing is indeed going to be the name of the game is my next thing I'm going to talk about here with Grubb. This is not going to strike anybody as odd, but they did the Washington Huskies 59% of the time over the past 2 years. And they were precisely at 59% of the time passing in both 2022 and in 2023. So not collectively when I put it all together, but it's literally on the button, 59% in both of the 2 years. For those wondering though, the Seattle Seahawks last year actually threw 60% of the time. Now, was that because they were behind in football games? Was that because they couldn't run the football? I'll let you make of that what you will with that particular statistic. But he is going to keep this in line with that amount of passing. You can expect those guys on the outside to get a heavy amount of targets, though we will try to run. And I think this year we may be a little bit more run heavy than we might be even in the foreseeable future. It is still going to be one that's going to utilize those guys on the outside, and everybody's going to have their chance to get their targets. The thing that stood out about me with Grubb and watching the Huskies throughout the year was how, even when he had McMillan back in there, he was still finding a way to get it to his guy, Odunzie. Oh, here, let's get upfield 40 yards to Polk. Oh, let's work it on a third down for a 15-yard gain here to Jalen McMillan. Oh, let me throw it out to the flat here to Dylan and let him run it for a 10-yard gain. Oh, back underneath here to Westover. He can get these guys continually feeling like they're always in and part of the game and being worked, whereas he's not just leaving a guy for 2 or 3 quarters and then, okay, I'll come back to him now. And it stood out to me in all of the Husky games I watched with Grubb that was what he was bringing to the table, and I thought it was impressive, really impressive on his part with that. Background as a quarterback, offensive line, running back, and wide receiver coach. He has done all of those things in his past. And this is less to do about what he brings here conceptually and just more to do with how this instructs him in all places for how he sets up his game designs. What I mean by that, it's a quarterback-friendly offense. Get the ball out of his hands. Give him some easy decisions. Make the game in general easier on him. Are there going to be those moments where he's going to have to read it, change protections, call an audible, make a play where things aren't done right because I haven't brilliantly, put the X's and O's all together for him on this one play? Yeah, but over the course of the game, I want to do that for him as much as possible. I know that this is all of this is the purpose of all coaches, but this is the thing that he shows for what with Michael Penix and how he was able to keep him so clean and yet still also build within this offense so many attempts there with Penix to be able to still target deep down the field. You think if you're going to keep that guy that clean, it's being done because you're having him just, it's almost playing hot potato with the football post snap. Hike, less of read it, draw the safety over, come back, flip your hips, let it rip. And he understands how to keep things mixed up to where even when teams were running a lot of heavy blitz pressure looks, he would have the protections in place. And that's where we get to the offensive line part of this, where he's got the offensive line married up to what he's doing with the routes being run down the field. If I've got guys trying to attack deep down the field, I'm going to have my extra blockers in here. I'm going to be able to give my guy the clean pocket he needs. I'm not going to run the Jerry Glanville run and shoot. Warren, hold on to your butt cheeks and just hope you don't get smacked in the head. And if you do get smacked in the head, by God, have that ball out of your hand. You're not doing that. You're going to have the protections in place because he understands the need to give those offensive linemen help when they're aware of the fact, for instance, that the team might be taking a deep shot play. We're looking to do so. There's an early play in that Texas game. In fact, I think it's the opening drive of that Texas game where I talked about those two early back-to-back runs. Washington runs the two probe runs, probe here, probe there. But then they come back with kind of a deep corner post route, and that's on a 3rd and long. The first two runs didn't get anything. You're in a 3rd and 7, you're in a 3rd and 8. Texas defense is aware that you're going to, need to hold on to the ball a little bit for those developing routes to get down there, especially for a corner post route that can take forever. But they were able to complete it because they had the protections in place to make it happen. So he marries that all together. He knows how to get the wide receivers coach aspect of it, the option routes, the giving them the freedom to run the routes with a little bit of an unorthodox approach. A guy like Tyler Lockett, I think, is going to fit really well in with Grubb, because Grubb's going to give him a lot of, I think, ability to freelance built within what they do in these routes. All the other guys as well, but that's certainly something Tyler's already shown a very high acumen for being able to do, is as much as running a route as perfectly and precisely as you might see a guy on Instagram be running, is that he can just stutter his pace, set up a guy with a little bit of a just subtle shoulder bob and then turn to here and then flip the hips back, and he'll do something that's just a little bit outside the box, but it will work. It will get him open. So he has this all background. He marries these guys together in this way where you feel him not kind of forgetting about this part of the team here, but understanding how it all kind of works together in tandem. And I think that that's certainly a big part of what helps, not a big part, but definitely a part, what helps to make him a successful head coach. He has spoken about the fact, as Grubb, that the offense seeks to have a negative play less than 12% of the time. And when you do watch the Huskies offense last year, what does stand out is most of these plays are getting you positive plays. They're getting you up the football field on 1st or 2nd down. Maybe it's a 4-yard throw out to the tight end. It's just a throw out to the flat there to the running back. He takes it for 3.5-yard gain. But you're not going to get the penetration. You're not going to get the broken plays. You're not going to get the bad negatives. You're not going to get the sacks in this offense. And the reason behind this is that, of course, you want the plus plays every down, because as I showed there with the 3rd down conversion rates, the spread offense is not going to be afraid of 3rd down. Tom Brady, when he was running the spread concepts 15 years ago there with the Patriots, wasn't afraid of 3rd downs. In fact, you kind of felt like they were layups for them at times, because that's you going into the bread and butter of that offense when you're into those moments. 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, our offense is built to get those kind of plays. But negative plays is something that's going to seek to try to avoid. And Grubb has said less than 12% of the overall plays he's seeking as kind of a goal here. On the other end of that, as far as a percentage standpoint, Grubb's also said that he wants to get an explosive play 16% of the time. And when you talk about, I think, a little bit of, to me, the differences from what I've seen from when we do, watch the Mike Leach offenses of old, it's a little bit more of that tunnel screen, bubble screens, quick throws out the back, drag route underneath, quick throw out here to the receiver, a lot of quick attacking throws, a lot of that horizontal aspect of things. What I think is part of the unique turn here for Grubb and what he does with his offense is the willingness and want, not just the willingness, but the want to get after you deep, to hit you with those chunk plays. I get a matchup that I like with one of my guys, we're going to take our shot down the field. And certainly he was taking advantage of having his great quarterback that did that at as good a level as anybody in college football. And maybe we've got a Larry Fitzgerald 2.0 here in Odunze that was out there, and the other guys were certainly drafted high, and it shows the NFL thought well of their talents as well. He leaned into his strengths here with it, but I think that's going to carry over where he understands that there's a general feeling from defenses that when you run these spread concepts, you're going to be dinking and dunking, so we got to press up a little bit on you. We gotta come on up here a little bit and take that dinking and dunking away. And once we do that, now is when I can go over the top. And this is that push-pull game between cover 3, cover 2, cover 3, cover 6, and cover 2, as far as the splits between that, where it comes down to a bottom line of, can we bring up our extra safety down here to take away the short routes? Not bring the extra. This used to be you bring up the extra safety to take away the run game, right? That's the box safety was down there to do. But now it's bring down the safety to take away the short routes. But now we leave the single high safety over the top. There's very few Earl Thomases in this league that can cover center field all the way like that, especially when you can get them to bite one way or the other if you're running something with a two-man concept on the top end of things with the route running. So Grubb has understood that I've got to still have a bunch of free and clear openings here for my quarterback to be able to hit those shots down the field. And even at times on pre-snap looks by what he's getting on the back end, be it in that cover 2 or that single high look. But when he gets his single coverage, if he gets DK out on the outside with single coverage, the Seahawks aren't going to just sit in the play and go, well, we got a play call right now where we're doing this. We're not really just going to audible that and go to a go route here. He on the opposite end, I think, is going to be very aggressive all the time on this, where he'll tell a guy like Gino, you come up the box and you see single high safety and he's got a press look up there with Chadarius Ward. We're hitting DK over the top on that all day. We're going to test that safety out. And if that safety leans too far over their DK, I'll have Tyler running a corner post out there to the left side of the field, or Jackson moving up the slot, reading the same safety, and Jackson will run an option route off that safety deep. So we'll have him either way. Sounds very simplistic, but you see some of that simplicity within the Huskies and what they do to some of these teams. Not all teams allow for that kind of route reading or the option reading within the routes as much as I think he's going to allow it in this offense, which is really cool, and doing some research on him. Because you give your receivers a chance to read a bad defense. If you read coverages where defenders are leaning too early in one particular way, and snap, you can take advantage of that. But 16% of the time, you are going to get explosive plays. This is also a little bit married up with the trick play angle of things here, where that's really a lot what you're trying to do on trick plays, get those explosive plays as well. So he's looking to attack and not just short. Then in tandem with that, his willingness to attack deep with explosion. You have Grubb running a screen play once every 8 plays. A screen pass once every 8 plays. 73 screen passes on the season last year from the Washington Huskies. And this is where we come back to that attack you in all places on the football field. We're not just trying to hit you with the first 10 yards of space. I mean, you can kind of say a little bit like West Coast offense. Well, we're trying to hit you with the first 10 yards of space, really. I mean, that's where we're kind of trying to live. Rather than live on the run, we're going to set up the run by passing. We're going to hit you with those short and intermediate concepts. You can kind of count on us being in this general plane of existence area. With this offense, is when we can be way deep down the field. We can be 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage with the screen concepts we might run. And a lot of what they do with the screen stuff is creating where they don't run as much. They become like run plays. The expectation isn't here. We're trying to bust it for a 30, 40 yard. It's great if that happens, but we're just, hey, let's go get 7, 8 yards on this. That's fine for us. Accomplishes the same thing for us first half, and didn't necessarily do it by running. And so once every 8 plays, you're going to get a screen pass from Ryan Grubb, and that's in tandem with that explosive play aspect he's going to go for as well. Makes it very, very, very tough. The offense is designed to get the ball out quickly. This is coming back to the point I was talking about a second ago in regards to making it easier on the quarterback. This offense is a very QB friendly and allowing them to have checks, the option routes that lets receivers run, the ability to change the play at the line of scrimmage. Some of that's Michael Penix at times when you're watching the tape, looking over at Grubb going, more than it is. He's making the read, but certainly Gino's capable of doing that. And so the offense is designed to get the ball out very quickly a lot of the times. And it will be sometimes through those flood zone concepts where you're just running 2 guys through, leaving the third guy open and giving the quarterback just the easy throw. You get the defenses in cover 2 and go, okay, we can go to these easy, quick, short little pop throws. The expectation level being that we just need to get plus yardage on each play. It's not necessarily about busting the big one. That's great if that can happen, but make sure we get our 3 or 4 yards here. Make sure we get the positive plus play. Make sure we get ourselves into third down and easy and makeable. But it's not an offense that is going to make the QB sit there on short protections up against the casino blitzes and hang in there to the last second, then let it rip. It's a lot of what is kind of fun. What I like about this offense is you come again from the real true kind of origins of it in that run and shoot. That was there in the origin points of this. The origin story of it was hold on for dear life, Warren. It's going to get ugly. And it speaks to Warren and the greatness of his career and how good he was that he was able to be so productive in that offense, because you could probably run a fairly good clip together of Moon getting knocked in the chops over and over and over again on the back of the minimal protections he was being given. But ball out quickly, ball out quickly, ball out quickly. Now we attack deep. Ball out quickly, ball out quickly, ball out quickly. Oh, you think a running play is coming? It's a flea flicker. Oh, you think that's a fly sweep? He's throwing it back to the quarterback who's throwing it deep down the field. Ball out quickly, ball out quickly. And there's you got your little bit of your rhythms here on from a play standpoint of how this will go when you watch it play out on the field. Lots of shifts, lots of pre-snap motion. This educates the offense and confuses, of course, at the same time. Educates the offense as to what the defense is, what the coverages they're in, how potentially players are slanting or getting them to show their hand prior to the snap, and then also creating the confusion. There's a play in the Texas game where you got Huskies roll a three-man shift to the left side. You got the safety on the back end who's the communicator on the play. He's screaming and shouting and pointing up at the front end, trying to get them to do what they need to be doing. He gets back out there to a strong safety and he's trying to point to him and tell him, and he's still pointing at the safety. Boom, on the snap. Boom, touchdown. If I got a safety prior to a snap pointing, trying to still communicate, they don't even see the snap, like, no, oh my God. If that situation plays out like that, I got you. Because it's a game about inches. It's a game about feet. And I've got you as an offensive coordinator. I've gotten you to that state. And it might seem kind of silly at times that simply moving, you have two guys aligned here, they step out, they move back here, running back goes back out to here, and how that can confuse defenses up, but it does just that. They're trying to identify what their responsibility is pre-snap, and that whole pre-snap motion respins it all up right before the snap. And if you get your guys snap before they can get their identification on point, you've got them exploited, just as they did in this game against Texas. But lots of shifts, lots of pre-snap motion. This is where the game is going. This is on really where you want to be in this NFL point at this point, because we're going to look at it, I think, 5-6 years from now, and it's going to be a matter of every snap there's pre-snap motion going on. You're going to find very little bit of the times where there'll be everybody just stagnant at the line of scrimmage prior to the snap and just in place. So the fact that he rolls with that and takes advantage of that, again, no advantage left ungone here when it comes to Grubb. I think this is part of why McDonald hired him on, because that's, of course, what I told you guys about a couple of weeks ago in McDonald as well. I'm not going to leave advantages out here. I'm not going to say we got to just win with just this collection of things. I got a table in front of me. I'm like John Wick walking up to the table. The gunsmith's in front of me, and he's like, "Good evening, sir. What can we have for you? Here we've got this, and then we've got this globe, we've got that, we've got this." And you're going through the whole table, and you see he goes, "I want all of them, and give me enough ammo for a siege." So it's not about just picking little one parts. It's going to all areas and all things and attacking ways. Don't just stay stagnant, spread concept. Lots of pre-snap motion. Lots of show me your hand of what you're doing pre-snap. Not just spread and looking to attack short. Hey, we got the explosive plays. Not just looking to attack too much of the explosive plays, also building in the screens within it. Not just being inside run zoning team that wants to hammer the A and B gap over and over again, but we're going to hammer every area and hammer it in every manner. We might get to the outside zone run by just a pure outside zone run. It might be a pitch play to the outside. It might be a counter back to the outside. We might run a pin pull concept off that same thing, and then the next play not run the same pin pull concept, have them block down to the safeties instead. So it'll be so many different varied things that'll be it'll be fun about covering this team and both sides of the ball. It's going to be very hard in trying to figure out what the hell is always going on, as it's going to be, I think, for the defense. So those are the items we've got on Ben Grubb. One last little thing I wanted to show you guys on this before we get over to you guys in the chat. Mesh concepts are also a big part of what you're going to see from Grubb. And you'll see things a little bit like this, where you get Geno and shotgun running back to his side. You've got your essentially slots, the J there. You got your H back. That's going to be your Fant on the play here. X will be DK. Z will be Tyler Lockett. And Tyler, you love to give him option routes, right? So this is the option routes where Tyler gets to read and feel the coverage a little bit by what they do. You run the mesh because you're hoping to get a little bit of a rub route concept going on. When you've got your tight end and you got your slot going like this over the course of the play, the defenders trailing also have to go like this. And that means they got to not run into each other. And God forbid they do run into each other, you've got a problem. This has been the route concept that basically destroyed, in many ways, the cover 3 defense. Not just this one alone, there was other ones with it, but this was the one that just gave it absolute fits. Because the X and the Z end up running the outside corners off. So that means that all you need from a quarterback standpoint there is one of your two mesh concepts to break open. And if, God forbid, that doesn't happen, you still got the outlet to the running back, where with Seattle at that point, they would have drifted and dropped back their defensive coverages at that point, left the running back out into the flat most likely. the very least for a 4 or 5 yard gain. So you knew the worst case scenario was a 4 to 5 yard gain to the flat. The best case scenario is we can attack them over the top if we beat them with our outside receivers. Then you got the mesh concepts underneath if that doesn't happen. And the mesh also get to work off option routes. That's what you see with the read thing there is we can run the mesh, but if we read that they're overplaying the mesh too much with zone coverages where they're sliding their zone to the outside there, we then can sit down in the middle of the field and read it. And then it's on us and the quarterback to read it in the same way at that point, which we should be if we're preparing throughout the week on what we're to be looking for if we're going to sit down in that way. You can come back to the other side of this then with the run and shoot vertical concepts of old. After you do this, you've got this, you pull the defense up with the mesh, right? Ooh, we got to watch this out. Not only with them carrying across the field, but if they're going to sit down. Then we come back now and we can hammer them on a play. We can come back with the run and shoot concept type of stuff here where you don't have a lot of the max protect here. You got the defense though in this kind of moment thinking it's going to get something like this, especially with the 2 inside receivers, but instead they take it up the seams, everybody's up the seams, and you hopefully then catch a safety in a pickle there where he's got to pick between 3 different guys, and you got a whole lot of defenders underneath at that point. As you can see within this, there's also a lot within those little different route concepts on the outside and with the inside route concepts there that it provides for the wide tight end there. That's where you get the option routes also built within this here. So that you're not just running a route that's hard-lined and that you got to run, and if you don't beat your man, well, I guess I'm on the play. Too bad. You can read off of your leverage. And the game is in many ways, again, like pre-snap motion, like all of the shifting, this is where the game is going. Being less about the 1980s, 90s, 2000 styles of you have a route to run your route, and that's what you'll be doing. If it's a post, it's a post. If it's a 9 route, it's a 9 route. If it's a curl, it's going to be a curl. Rather than it being, well, read the cornerback's leverage. Is he going cover 3 with a bail drop technique, playing to depth? All right, roll the curl off that. Roll the stop route off that. Roll an in-cutting route off that, whatever we have designed within the option route basis of it on a given play. Like you got with the X receiver on this basically all-go concept, where he can come back here to basically a stop route if he wants to come back to on it in their play design, if that's what he's going to read on the defenders. You get all the defenders dropping to depth, you still have a built-in adaptation to be able to, okay, you guys went to too much depth, now we can get back to you underneath here still with some of the reads our receivers can make on the play. So this is just going to be, and I don't want to seem too fanboying out on it. We obviously, as I said at the top on this show, a big part of this is going to be based upon how this translates to the NFL level. College coach running spread concepts like this has not gone to an offensive coordinator position in the NFL. Chip Kelly went to a head coaching position, and he was pretty much the offensive coordinator there with the Eagles, and that was an absolute train wreck. So it's not the best of models to go off of. There is a bust factor in there. I don't want to undersell the fact that there's not a risk taken within this. But the big thing that I've tried to push back with some people that worry about the risk of this is, number one, the boom is with this as well. The explosive factor to what this could be, where so many of the tenets of this offense are built within modern designs and where the NFL is going. So there's that part of it where the boom factor is huge here. And while the bust factor is huge as well, if it doesn't work out with Grubb, this isn't a thing where you're married to him for years on end. It's in many ways can be looked at as a bit of an experiment. And so if looked at through that view and understanding that coordinators are not like coaches and how much you got to kind of devote to the time with them if it's not working, and we'll give them time to work out a system and give them time to kind of get through no, you can move through if you need to on this if it's not one that's going to work. I think it is going to work because Grubb's coming to a place that matches offensive talent from an NFL standpoint to a lot, even more so maybe than what he had there with the University of Washington. He's got 2 dynamic backs where as much as Dylan was pretty good for them last year and had his share of really tough runs, and he'd fight his butt off every run. I ain't going to deny that. But this is 2 different levels of running back he's got to work with now. And especially with the plays that he can have within his playbook drawn up for a guy like Walker, where if you give me into space, you give me opportunity to get my engines turned up to full, where you can see that afterburner glowing. I'm going to do some heavy damage to a defense. And he's going to, I think, find those guys some big time production. But he's got the playmakers on the outside to take the top off the defense. He's got the Jackson Smith type that can be the guy to work underneath and be that slot guy, because that's a big part of this offense too, is that slot guy. And that slot guy getting deep. That's where Jackson's going to be used a lot better this year, where it isn't going to be just bubble screens to Jackson. He'll have his share of those, but there's going to be so much of him running these same kind of option routes up the field with his quickness, reading leverage, and attacking. And he showed you a couple times last year, he did have an ability to get the top off the defense. The Niners game with the one-handed catch down the field, the Eagles game on the game winner. A couple moments in there. I think we had the Panthers game where he got the first touchdown catch, getting up the seam there on a bit of a broken coverage play. He's going to find a lot of productivity, I think, within this offense as Jackson Smith, but this is going to be an offense going to be working really well, I think, for the Seattle Seahawks team in this upcoming season. And it's nice that they've started to get offensive linemen in here too that are going to fit well to the mobility aspect. The part I didn't talk as much about here in this opening part that certainly when we get into the film, I think I'll dive in a little bit more, is just how many linemen he pulls in space on running plays or in screen games where some teams might just pull that one guard back across the formation. He'll pull the two, and that running back, it's just a beautiful thing to watch where that running back's on the back hip of those front two blockers, those two big boys out in front of him. And it feels like, oh, this is a 5-6 yard play minimum here. Even if they get a number of defenders over there, it's who's going to be the first defender? It's like when they ran the wedge blocks on kick returns. Nobody wanted to be that wedge defender, had to go in there and kind of be the first guy to just throw your body into it, essentially, to knock out the blockers. But you have to kind of choose to be that. And we're in an age right now where guys don't really love to tackle, don't tackle the same ferocity they once did. And so having given the running back those kind of bodies, Walker is going to feel like he's got Secret Service protection when he gets outside and is running in space, when he feels all these blockers he's going to have on his hip pocket to utilize and work back if he wants to kind of cut back through and get back behind this guy and put his hand on his back and you get him, big fella. I'll just be back here. Take your time. So a lot of post-snap motion stuff that he does as well with those linemen. And now with guys like Haynes and Bradford, although Atimi can do this type of stuff, it's going to suit to these guys' skill. And when it comes to Abraham Lucas, when it comes to Charles Cross, both of these two guys played in air raid systems in college. So can they play in it? Can they excel in it? You bet your ass they can. So the offensive line's in place to do this. Of course, we got the tight ends to run the 12 personnel packages that he does like to run a lot of, in addition to the 3-4 wide receiver sets that you see within the spread systems. But it's an exciting spread system. It's not a boring one. It's not an old one. This is one that's being trudged out from some as a Chip Kelly acolyte type guy. This is one that has its DNA going way back, and you feel still the influences of that. But now it's its own modern thing. And that's where I think it's got the great chance for success, and that it's taking the best parts of the old and trying to seek the new ways, the new innovations, the pre-snap motions, the shot plays within a spread system, these type of things, which is a beautiful thing to see.